I thank SAGES for the opportunity to present disclosures, and they have not much to do with the relevance to today's talk. So we're going to go to Haiti. For those of you not familiar, this is the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. You can see Cuba for orientation way up in the left corner. We're talking about our laparoscopic training center in a rural community in central Haiti, and then Port-au-Prince, the capital city, down here where there's 3 residency programs. Residency program up in Cap-Haïtien, the northern second most populous city, and then a new one in Mirabelais. So Haiti's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Nearly 60% of people live on less than $2.41 a day, and 24%, or 1 out of every 4 people, live in extreme poverty, which is half that in terms of daily income. 3 out of 4 people have no running water. There's 100,000 children who still suffer from severe malnutrition, and the unemployment's 50%. For those not familiar with how we classify the countries, low-income countries have an annual family income of about $1,000 or less. In Haiti, you can see that it's much less than that, at $880 for the majority of the population, and actually 1 out of 4 being less than $450 a year. So how did we get minimally invasive surgery going in the poorest country in our hemisphere? Well, it started with our efforts back in 1995, and it started with a novel philosophy at that time, which was pretty controversial, and it was the global importance of minimally invasive surgery. And I had been quoted in the past for the poor benefit more from MIS than the rich, and I think you'll see that consistently on the panel today. But really, it was the Haitian surgical community who really desired it and asked for it. So now there's multiple published reports of the global importance of minimally invasive surgery. We've been able to document that open surgeries have prolonged hospital stays, and this can translate into a lack of food, which can be a matter of life and death for families who are in extreme poverty, who have to cook for the loved one that's in the hospital. The advantages, as we know, are profound for low-income country patients, and perhaps more advantageous because of the reduction in wound infections, ventral hernia, pain medications, blood loss, fear of surgery, et cetera, which we're all familiar with. It's particularly important in low-income country conditions where the sanitation, sterilization, limited diagnostic imaging, limited access to pain medications, and fewer hospital beds are a problem. So we started to teach it in a difficult setting, very much like described in Nigeria. And finally, we were able to put together some industry folks and a lot of corporations and philanthropists to build the first telecommunicating endosuite in the Caribbean in a small town in rural Haiti with no running water and no electricity. We opened it in 2003. The first laparoscopic cholecystectomy, besides being very cool with all our boom mounts and everything, I had 27 surgeons in the room, and I quickly realized that that was perhaps not the best way to educate people. So we decided to build a laparoscopic training center. So we put up an addition onto the previous addition for the surgery, and this enabled us to have an inanimate lab and an animate lab, and we started to incorporate things like energy courses. We just introduced Fuse this last year. And then we were able, because of these advances, to start training the trainers. And in this picture on the left here, you can see the chief of surgery at the Maine National University Hospital, Dr. Telementoring, and another chief from another hospital. And we were able to put people into a classroom, and with the head mic, you can narrate the procedure, and everybody can see that laparoscopic view quite nicely. This allowed us to teach general surgeons, OBGYN surgeons, urologists, anesthesia would watch and learn, and this was a tremendous advance. In fact, at the time, I wished I would have had this when I was in training. So let's discuss for a moment the barriers to laparoscopy in the countries. Well, the one that's quoted in the literature the most is actually cost. And I think most people think, well, we just can't afford this because it's just not cheap. Well, that's kind of a myth that needs to be busted. It can be very cost effective. In fact, it was reported by Adewale he did 3,200 laparoscopies with a single reusable set over a course of 18 years at a cost of 75 cents per patient. When 1990, that was from 72 to 90, by the way, before most of us even picked up a laparoscope. In 1990, when laparoscopic cholecystectomy came out, he did 1,084 consecutive lap choles with a cost of $20 per patient. This was reported in Surgical Endoscopy in 2001. So it's definitely possible for a low-cost strategy to make laparoscopy easily affordable, but maybe not accessible. What about the second most quoted problem, and that's access to laparoscopic equipment? We don't really buy that either. You know, if you go around, many of the hospitals have had donated stacks that actually work, but they sit idle for most of the year, maybe just waiting for some team that knows what they're doing with laparoscopy to come. And so access to laparoscopic equipment probably isn't the main problem. It's more about the other problems below that, training of surgeons and healthcare workers to build a workforce that can actually utilize the equipment. Maintenance of equipment is a huge issue. Where do you get the replacement parts? What's the supply chain? Who's going to fix it? And the environment is important as well. Earlier mention of electricity, huge problem. What about temperature, air conditioning, controlling humidity? How about storage of the equipment? What about security so it's there the next time you start a case? Now in Haiti, we have other special challenges that are added to the routine barriers that you see published in literature. On January 12, 2010, the greatest disaster in the history of our hemisphere struck Port-au-Prince. 316,000 people were killed in 45 seconds. 300,000 people were injured, of which 3,000 people survived as amputees. Greater than 1 million people were displaced and homeless, and the previous orphan culture was magnified dramatically. So what did SAGES and the Global Affairs Committee do in response to this disaster? Help came in from all over the world, and we sent down people, and after really looking at things, we realized that probably the biggest need probably wasn't a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. We realized that the residents and faculty of Haiti that had survived probably needed some help with basic surgical education. So we decided to share our SCORE curriculum from the United States. We delivered a series of video conferences from SAGES professors all over the country from coast to coast. It highlighted key surgical diseases and procedures according to the SCORE curriculum. This allowed bidirectional communication between our renowned educators and the Haitian audience. This engaged our academic communities in the US with surgeons in Haiti to help improve opportunities for their doctors, their hospitals, and their patients. This year shows our first test conference. Actually, Dr. Ray Price did a SAGES guidelines here for laparoscopy and pregnancy. We chose that because we always do our courses with 50% general surgeons and 50% OBGYNs. Women's surgery is far more important throughout the low and middle income countries than laparoscopic cholecystectomies. So that's been part of our tradition from the beginning. And so this was a fantastic topic to start it off. We had a robust telecommunicating center there, the only one in Haiti, but we proved it worked. So then we went for memorandums of understanding, and by the next year we were able to achieve that with the Ministry of Public Health and all of the important people in Port-au-Prince that take care of the university residency programs. And we had the first successful conference about a year later in Port-au-Prince. This was able to be linked to all the residency programs in the entire country so that our participants could number well over 100. I thank all the contributors, many of whom are in the audience here, you know who you are, for their willingness to be able to serve and to reach out to our friends in Haiti. Now what about how we done since that time? Well, we did really well for a period of 29 conferences in 3 years until they had an election. And the election, they were unable to agree on their president. And that's a problem because the new university hospital, which is just completed, I just took this picture a couple of weeks ago when I was there. It's apparently been pretty much done for almost a year now. But see, Haiti was supposed to furnish the inside. The United States, Canada, and France built it at a cost of about $60 million, and then Haiti was supposed to just fill it. Well, problem is the earthquake was 8 years ago, and now there's no money. So it's sitting, waiting. Hopefully someday we'll be in it. Why? Well, a lot of low-income countries have a big problem with corruption. When there's deficient governance and leadership and failures to elect presidents, like in Haiti, this results in workers not being paid. In Haiti last year, the resident strike lasted almost 11 months. It caused the closing of the university hospital, believe it or not. And when they finally got back to work and started to get paid, they found the beds missing. So there's a lot of issues with political problems that interfere with progress in healthcare. Now, barriers that are common, though, to all low and middle income countries was well described in actually Alan O'Kranick's group, where he looked into these barriers, and the barriers were not what we discussed earlier, but he identified in his work in Africa that the hierarchy of the local surgical culture was the most important factor, and that senior surgeons were often reluctant to retrain and change from their familiar practice, and in turn fail to encourage their younger residents due to their lack of expertise. Boy, that sounds awfully familiar to the early 1990s for someone who remembers how that was in the United States. Now, there's also a lack of commitment to prioritize MIS, and this is a struggle in a lot of places, which has to do with the first problem, I think, and this leads to disagreement about how funds should be prioritized and utilized, and there's a lack of an organizational structure for funding, or like in Haiti, there's pretty much no funding at all. The other thing that we found in our work with laparoscopy over the years, since we've been doing it for so long, is that maintenance and repairs is an issue. We had no skilled biomedical technicians there, and fortunately, we partnered with Houston Methodist, who sent down a biomed team and trained people over a 2-year period, and we trained people from all over the country of Haiti, which has really been a tremendous asset. Nevertheless, these are basic biomed, and in laparoscopy, sometimes we need really specific, industry-specific things. So I'm not going to go into the conditioners needed to preserve electrical equipment, as it was just covered. A word about donations. It's easy to get donations from your last generation when you do trade-outs. But please, those of you who work in hospitals that own the equipment and are going to do a trade-out, try to talk your CEOs, COOs, into not accepting the minimal trade-in allowance for a perfectly good, high-definition setup that you're just trading out. Get them to donate it. And that's where you can get excellent video stacks, and you can accomplish like what Dr. Ponsky did in Nigeria. Do not waste donated dollars by shipping unsolicited items. If you don't have bilateral agreement and requests for specific items, don't waste the money on shipping it. Spend it on something they actually need. Reusable instruments are really important. In fact, you can reuse disposable instruments. That happens all over the globe. Adapt your CO2 tanks from your bottling companies so that you don't need to have the gasless systems, which aren't quite as good for visualization. Obviously, soaking of instruments is really important when you can't afford sterilization equipment or you can't maintain it. Regarding training, there's something that we do in Haiti that's very effective. We instituted something called the Olympics, which is kind of a takeoff of FLS. And every year we give gold, silver, and bronze medals to the best trainees that we have. This is a coveted national award now. I've walked into people's offices and it's above their medical diploma, you know, if they were the gold medal winner for that particular year. So we encourage you to spruce up your courses a little bit and make it exciting. You know, have people go for timing and accuracy challenges and then measure those and award the best people. This shows the OBGYN and the general surgeons working together in competition, and get them a diploma. They'll love it. Finally, on adaptive strategies, we've identified certain great surgeons that come out of these courses, and you got to find them to be the future champions. You encourage them to have entrepreneurial business development in their own communities. We have an organization in Haiti now led by 2 of our past students called Gynendo Haiti. They're actually 2 gynecologists. And they maintain 4 different video stacks in 4 different hospitals now, and they're the ones who maintain and service the equipment. When a new surgeon comes in, they hire their services and operate with the more experienced surgeons, which allows them to get started in laparoscopy. They've actually started an independent establishment of an MIS center just this year, which will be done by next year. That's phenomenal in this particular country. Telementoring and on-site training together are essential. You have to invite these young surgeons to be future faculty. Now, I go down with a very small team, and the Haiti faculty, they're doing most of the teaching, and they're doing it in their own language. And then you have to encourage these people. If you don't do that with them, they're not going to learn that they need to give back to their residents in their own country. The secret to success is friendship and commitment to these people. Finally, the MOUs I mentioned earlier. We've done this with numerous organizations for hernia and urology, and this has led to numerous nationwide collaborative efforts to educate and propagate many surgical initiatives. And finally, the Public Health Ministry is actually supporting our efforts in surgery. The last thing is our metastasis phase. This is beyond training the trainers, and we're finally getting to, I think you're going to hear from the next speaker, where they've gotten in Mongolia, which is way beyond where we are, but that's the essential phase, is going out to all of the areas of the country. And now the residency programs in Haiti, all of them want us to come. We have to have requirements in order to go to each one. There has to be a local surgeon champion. This is the first guy I trained back in 1995. He's 75 years old. He's the chief of surgery right now, but you have to have buy-in from people like him. This is a young pediatric surgeon who's had lap training, who's all excited about it. That's our fellow and some of the residents that we met to create this mutual planning process. So let me end by modifying a famous proverb. Give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish with the right line, the right bait, at the right time of day and at the right spot, and he may, with guidance, practice, and experience, actually be able to feed himself and his family for a lifetime. And that's something worth fishing for. Thank you.